Some of you may be surprised it was Klaus who broke the glass and not Clara, considering she has been the much more proactive one of the two since the beginning. But Klaus did have a stronger connection to the glass than Clara did, so it still makes sense. Same reason the only one that made him scream was the red one. Catching Klaus in the act leaves his fate, as is everything in this house, in the hands of the Lord.
Smäll på fingrarna, det gör för ont det. Då är det bättre med smisk.
It's entertaining to watch the Lord attempt to make any decision by himself, but I especially like this bit where he has to be penalizing and go against his basic nature to please. He goes back and forth with himself about how many lashes it should be, and he tells the coachman to be light about it. I mean, he doesn't want the corporal punishment to be too severe, or Klaus might not like it, you know. But all of this is a ruse. A cruel prank played on us by Grönros to lull us into a false sense of security. So the brutality we're about to witness becomes all the more disturbing. They're led outside and into the stable, but even stone walls and solid wood doors can't hide the act away. The coachman hangs him across a saddle and whips the boy with his cane. For every lash, Klaus screams in agony, but the stone-faced coachman does not let up, but lets his tool swing in a merciless rhythm that wrings the child ragged in pain and humiliation. Still, it doesn't help. Klaus keeps breaking the glass at night, and by the Lord's order, what had been 3 lashes becomes 10. Still, it doesn't end, and every morning the same torture repeats, and Clara is forced to watch her brother rung like a bell until she can't take it anymore and joins him in his screams. Those screams echo through the castle, through the halls, out the windows and over the walls, through the fog, across the water to the edge of the forgetting stream, where Sofia calls out for them. She calls across the river and hear their cries from the other side. But there is more. A voice. Albert's voice. He comes out of the fog and he tells her it's her fault. You said the children are just a nuisance. Just a nuisance. He tells her to take this punishment, and he screams, "You said the children are just a nuisance!"
Det var bara en mardröm, Sofia.
Was it? Most of the magic in this film isn't explained in any meaningful way, but all of it has a poetic logic to it that makes sense within the story. Sofia calling out to her children at the edge of the forgetting stream, while she hears them call out to her in the distance, knowing she can't help them but knowing they need help, being told this is her punishment for calling them a nuisance, while the children are being punished for being a nuisance. Is it a vision? A dream? Poetic license? I don't know. All you can do is accept it. While Albert tries to be strong, he's just as affected by their loss as Sofia. He pours his emotions into his work, and from it he creates vases, bottles, and decorations with the singular resolution of a man who has nothing else. In spite of their tragedy, or maybe through it, that same work is now rewarded beyond what he could dream, as people come from across the land to buy the tear-shaped glassware from him. I have tried several times to find replicas or surviving samples of the glass tears used in this movie, but I've never had the luck. Now, if Albert's glass not selling until Gustav pointed them out is contrived, then I have to admit his glass only selling when he only makes tears is even more contrived, but I'm more forgiving of it, partly because, like I said, I actually want one of those glasses. But more than that, it ties into the movie's theme regarding having one's wishes granted and living to regret it. In her cabin, Flaxa Mildväder remains frustrated. All she can see are worlds emerging in her weaves, obscuring everything she needs to see. Again she curses Cloak's half-blind state, but his response surprises her. With the one good eye, the eye she doesn't dare to trust, he looks at her and he says, "In the fog, even two eyes don't help." It's an unexpectedly sober statement that leaves Flaxa pondering. So she looks at the weave again and attempts to dilute the fog. That's when she sees it. The bottomless black pits of two bespectacled eyes staring back at her through the weave. Eyes she knows too well. I did mention this movie would deal with the nature of good and evil, but so far there hasn't been any evil. Oh, there's been cruelty, suffering and selfishness, absolutely, but it's all been motivated by vanity and naivete. It's all the result of misguided, stupid people who don't know what they're doing. The glassmaker and his wife, they are as much victims as the children are, of course. They did poetically deserve to lose their children because they took them for granted, but by itself that doesn't make them evil. Then there's the coachman who does what he's told. I know it isn't politically correct to say this today, but he's a servant who does what he's told. His actions are no more evil than his master's. And then there is the Lord. He can be cruel, absolutely, but it's motivated by the simple desire of wanting to make his wife happy because he loves her. By itself, that doesn't make him evil. Just misguided and foolish. And then there is the lady. I don't want to say too much about her just yet. She's the closest thing we've had to evil so far, or at least compared to what's coming. She's vain, she can be sadistic towards the Lord, and let's not forget, none of this would be happening if it wasn't for her. But there is more to her still. There is enough to not make her evil just yet. All of these characters are just trying to live their lives as best as they can, is what I'm saying. None of them intended for any of this to happen, and none of them want things to be this way. It's just how things have turned out. But there is someone who does want things to be this way. Someone who would benefit from it. Someone the movie has at times suggested may in fact be behind all of it somehow. Someone who is truly evil. The lady is at her wit's end. At night glass are breaking, and in the day the children are wailing. Her headaches are driving her insane, not to mention how sad it is for the children. When they're not being caned, they break things, and beyond that no one here cares about them. Why don't they have a governess? She stops mid-thought and faces the Lord head on. Why hasn't he gotten them a governess? It's something that never occurred to the Lord, but does the lady wish him to do that?
Jag önskar ingenting. Skaffa bara en.
I will say I'm not exactly sure how this woman is supposed to have caused any of this, which is why I skipped over all of the references to her until this moment. I suspect it's another one of the battles Grönros lost in the editing room, and I guess that somebody somewhere decided that kids need to be taught that there is always someone responsible, there's always a bad guy, instead of, I don't know, maybe teaching them that life isn't that simple at times. Personally, I think her swooping in and taking advantage of the situation is plenty evil enough.
Ni kallade.
It's not a question, but a statement. The person towering in the doorway is beyond anyone the Lord or Lady could have expected to meet. My name is Nana. I'm going to work in the house. Another statement. Their presence isn't just physical, they exert control over the room, demanding attention and respect. And revulsion. The creature is ungodly. Its corpulent face bulges grossly outwards, hugging the thin glasses like an overripe fruit caught in the branches that surrounds it. I care for children. The lady, being the closest to her, finds herself appalled by the convenient arrival of this creature, this woman. But the Lord only sees its convenience, so she is introduced to Claes and Klara.
Så det här är mina barn som är så lydiga, som måste uppfostras.
Nana, played to horrifying perfection by Ann-Katrin Palme. If I was scared of the coachman as a kid, I was petrified of Nana. Because she embodies a type of horror that I feel not a lot of other characters play around with. Abuse. Abuse is not the same thing as picking a person apart with a chainsaw or feeding them to a monster. It's a much more intimate, lasting type of dread. It's a type of dread that makes you feel under threat, not because something wants to harm you, but because you're in the wrong. It's a dread that makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells, petrified of breaking one, because if you do, whatever happens, it's your fault. And this terror doesn't go away. No. It hangs with you for weeks, months, or years on end, eating away at your inside until there is nothing left. That is the terror Nana personifies. It's a type of fear that I think most children are vulnerable to. Because as a child, you're expected to be taught how to be a proper person by older authority figures. And sometimes these people make you feel like you're stupid for not knowing something, or ashamed because you do something, or otherwise being wrong. If you're lucky, you're in the presence of adults who actually try to build you up, who try to make you feel better about your mistakes, or maybe even help you, maybe even teach you to overcome the thing that you're ashamed. But even if that's the case, I think all children have that fear of disappointing or angering the people around them, somewhere buried deep inside of them. And Nana zooms in on that fear and presses at it without mercy. But I am getting ahead of myself. The children remain bewitched by the imposing woman as she serves herself a manger's worth of stew provided for her by the kitchen staff. Food every other hour, she states, before she dives the minuscule spoon into the sloppy mess and proceeds to devour it with inhuman speed. All the while she stares manically at the children. The only moment her gaze wavers is when she looks where to place her spoon next. For every spoonful she loudly moans, with her tongue sticking out now and again to dab at the growing mess surrounding her lips. Once the plateful of stew has vanished into her gullet, she reaches to the side and attacks an entire cake. The sugary sweet cream mixes with the fatty stew around her mouth and runs down faster than the fat worm can catch it, until finally all of it is gone and she falls back, exhausted and content, before she moves to the bed she'd been given and falls asleep. What comes next I actually find more ridiculous than frightening, but to be fair, it has real-world consequences that makes it very uncomfortable to watch later on. Having the children's beds placed at the foot of her own, Nana falls into postprandial sleep. It's not surprising, perhaps, that the woman snores, and it's loud enough to rattle the windows. However, it goes beyond that. As she falls deeper into slumber, the very air around the room starts to move with the rhythm of her breathing. With every exhalation, the wind grows stronger until the veils and curtains billow to the storm born from her lungs.
Bara i 15 minuter har hon sagt. Det skulle inte vara så... 15 minuter sa hon.
Like I said, it's borderline cartoony. I can think of a realistic reason for why that happens, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, every other hour after she eats, Nana sleeps for 15 minutes. And when she does, she snores so loudly it's heard across the building. Laugh if you must, but it's only funny if you're not there to experience the real-life consequences of that. Not that I'd know, but the movie goes there. When she wakes up again, Nana puts the children to test. From a traveling chest that just about manages to compete with her bulk, she pulls out books, an abacus, and has quickly turned the room into a classroom. So quickly she just about manages to spit out 2 simple calculations before she demands class answers one himself. But the children are so fearful of the woman they're barely able to make a sound between them.
Vad är detta? Vi har barn i klassen som inte lyssnar. 1 plus 3 är 4, 7 plus 92 är 99. Upprepa vad jag sa!
She doesn't teach them anything. She just demands answers from them, answers that they can't possibly know. And when they don't answer, she just screams at them how dumb and useless they are. Credit to Palme for bringing to life a character that's this terrifying to children and this uncomfortable to adults. But, to be fair, the entire credit isn't hers, only about half of it. Palme didn't actually voice Nana. Eva Fröling did.
Ni kan ingenting och ni begriper ingenting! Jag har aldrig varit med om så obildade dumma barn!
Now and again it's pretty obvious her lines are dubbed over, but in no way does it take away from the performance, I think. This is abuse, pure and simple, and it's painful to watch. But if you're curious, the entire scene is available on YouTube. And while you're watching it, consider this. Nana sleeps for 15 minutes, is awake for 2 hours, then she sleeps 15 minutes again, and it starts all over. That means, near as makes no difference, 24 hours a day! This is the children's reality. She doesn't allow them to sleep, she doesn't allow them to move, she doesn't allow them to talk, she just tortures them. Why? Because it lets her stay at the castle. Under her breath, she mutters she would have been a singer if people's ears weren't broken. Having said that, she emerges from the trunk to look down on the children from across the room. She dons a theatrical hat of sorts and tells them she will test them if they too have broken ears. And so she belts out a din that penetrates the walls and windows, filling the castle's every nook and cranny with her voice. So loud and dissonant is she frightens the horses in the stable and sends the lady running for the highest tower to get away, but unable to flee the obnoxious wailing. Like a crocodile snapping its jaws shut, she finishes and stares at the children, expecting them to repeat the noise she just made. Nothing but hoarse whining escapes their lips. A sadistic smile divides Nana's face, and she approaches them. So, your ears are broken too. When they're in reach, she snatches their ears and squeezes them until they scream in pain. Ears like these I'm gonna pinch until they hear what I sing. I'm gonna teach you to listen with these. And as the dawn withers to night, the darkness falls around them. The dream has become a nightmare for everyone involved. Albert's glass have paid dividends beyond his imaginings. He barely has time to make new ones before they're sold again, and none of it matters in the slightest. Sophia is beginning to lose hope. At night she prays to God above for a sign, and then she dreams about hearing her children's screams from the other side of a mist-laden river, while the children wake up to the screams of Mimi. Mimi is Nana's pet cockatoo, and as much a victim of Nana's cruelty as anyone else. She's actually been established for a while now, I just couldn't find a good place to address her. The book goes out of its way to establish she's mute, but when I say she's mute, what I mean is she only makes a sound when she's asleep, presumably dreaming, and she screams. In the book's words, loud enough to cut through flesh and bone, and all the misery of the world could be found in that scream. In that sense, I think the movie got it right, because I hate the noise that bird makes. Nana's presence is a pain to the castle as a whole, especially for the sensitive lady. In a bid to solve it, the Lord suggests moving Nana to a tower, but she adamantly refuses. All of her things are here, and she will not be moved. And so the Lord retreats with his tail between his legs, back to the side of his lady. This is what I mean when I say Nana is the only true evil in this film. Whether or not she is actually responsible for it is up for debate, but she definitely don't want things to change, because the benefits to her are immense. She gets to live in a castle, she gets fed ridiculous amounts of, I assume, delicious food, and she is the hub of power in this building. The Lord, he's not gonna go against her because he doesn't have the backbone. The lady, she's not gonna go against her because she has fled to her bedroom. And the children's suffering is her meal ticket. She knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what's going on, and instead of trying to solve it, she uses it for her own gain. Her gain being the most basic, simple, animalistic needs a person could possibly choose to fulfill. It's mercurial, it's malicious, it's meaningless. And that is true evil. At least according to Maria Gripe. But we leave the character study in antagonism to visit the lady by her bedside. She's been driven to bed rest from the stress she's put under, made sick by the circumstance of the castle. She tells the Lord either to get rid of Nana or she runs away. But it's all commandments and demands, not wishes. The Lord pleads for her to start wishing again.
Minns du när du kom hit? När du kom till mig, till önskestad. Du ägde ingenting. Och jag fick ge dig allt.
And I can finally start talking about the lady as a character. We've all heard tell about how being given everything you want can be a curse. The lady lives in that reality. Having married the Lord, he gave her everything she could ever want. He gave her more than she ever wished for, because that's the only way he knows how to show he loves her. However, the more he gave her, the less he appreciated him for it. Back when we were first introduced to her, in the Hall of Mirrors, that was a glimpse into the world that the Lord has placed her in, where only she and nothing else exists. Because she has everything, there is nothing she wants, and she resents the Lord for it. To cope with it, she's become unreasonable and cruel, to torture him as much as he tortures her. Only she has the satisfaction of knowing why, but she keeps it to herself because she knows she could never make the Lord understand it. He doesn't understand that he's actually taking any and all joy away from her. And keep in mind, she's been living like this for years, with nothing to make her happy besides making her husband squirm. I'm doing a terrible job explaining it, but in essence, the reason she's become so sensitive to anything that could bother her is the constant stress she lives under, having no reason to live, nothing to keep her going, and no happiness to pursue. In a way, the Lord is right when he says if she would just start wishing again, she would feel better. But he doesn't understand she has nothing left to wish for, and by extension, he has turned the act of wishing into a pain for her. This was the case in the book as well, but the lady was more of a riddle with very little written about her to give context other than her sometimes enigmatic statements. In the movie, she is far more elaborate and human than she was in the book. And I appreciate this. Unlike the book, I know exactly what she means when she says this.
Då får du lära dig att trolla.
Och trolla?
Bara trolleri kan få mig att önska något mer i livet.
She's both telling the Lord that there is nothing he can do for her, while pleading for a miracle to happen. And the Lord, of course, takes her at her word. Weeks and months pass with the seasons, and Nana remains at the castle. But one night she sleeps past the 15-minute time she keeps, and Klaus and Clara takes the opportunity to leave. Not the castle, they can't leave it any more than they can sprout wings and fly away. But there is somewhere they can go. Through the lonely halls with the shallow paintings, through the shadowy corridors to the one place where they were seen. The only ones who saw them. The empty corridor with the mirror at the end. But as they reach it, as they slowly walk through the hall, even as they stand right before it, there is no one there.
De finns inte mer.
I love it. I love this scene. I love this scene. The Mirror Children were supposed to be a metaphor for Klaus and Clara's existence. For them to be gone, that means their very identities is being eroded by the constant abuse that they're suffering through, leaving only two empty vessels. It's horrible, it's powerful, and I love it. I love this scene. The sound of Nana snoring has become a constant for them. As empty as the halls themselves surrounding them, it simply is what their world is now. Until it isn't. With a snort, it stops. Nana awakes to find their beds empty, and sets after them, impossibly fast and unyielding. Her course leads straight to the children, wherever they are. A single door bars her, but with a push, the solid wood door comes off its hinges to reveal the children's petrified faces. She will not let them escape again, and threads their arms in chains. No, 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 the Lord does not approve of this. But what else can they do? The children need someone to keep an eye on them, but the good thing is that no more glass is being broken. Except for the shards he just stepped in. He barely has time to notice the shadow in the window. He only hears a mad laughter fluttering away on the wind. Oh, Jesus! This movie gets heavy towards the end. Heavier than I could have expected. All I can do is work to present the third and final act for your delectation next week. Thank you all for watching. I have been Cause Scratches. Make sure to follow my art channel, my DA, my Twitter, like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend, and I hope you will see me again next time to take another look at what I found.